This is Sharon Firebrace, and I'm interviewing Michael Anderson, who is the leader of the Euahlayi people of New South Wales, and also he's the Sovereign Union convener. Let's look at it in terms of land rights sovereignty treaty. Now, as Aboriginal people, we've got before us at the national level now the Turnbull government that's moving toward the inclusion of Aboriginal people into the Constitution. Now, can you outline to us what your concerns are about that?
Well, first of all, we're not Australian. Yeah? That's number one. We've been excluded from the whole mainstream system since time began in Australia for British upon their invasion of our country. They shot us out, they poisoned us, they took our kids away, they wanted to breed the colour out of us, and Now, what fool of an Aborigine would want to become part of the oppressive society that have done that to us? That's the first thing. I got that off my chest. Why can't our people see that we are a race separate to the Australian race? What is so difficult in being able to see that? Huh? And the only reason they can't see that is because they've been so colonised in their minds, and they're so entrenched in wanting to keep the dollar and their pay packet that they will sell their souls for this. To put the word Aboriginal into a constitution now and have some referendum on this, right, is only to so that they can show the world and they can show to Aboriginal people without us knowing that by acquiescence and enthusiasm to get our name in the Constitution, to be recognised in the Constitution of Australia, gives the Executive Parliament the power to pass laws for Aboriginal people. And I'll tell you what, they will not pass laws for Aboriginal people because then we will be seen as Australians.
So really, we heard a lot about the Magnificent Seven. We saw the black day or the bleak day that Noel Pearson announced at that point in time. So, in terms of rights for Aboriginal people, but the history pages will now speak that, as you're saying, as Aboriginal people, we didn't get, we really did not get a good deal out of that from the Magnificent Seven. As a matter of fact, our rights were extinguished.
They negotiated away.
They negotiated our rights away.
Yes, they did.
In that deal with the government. Now,
yes.
There's a lot there that's been lost. Obviously, Michael. So therefore, what we're talking about, therefore, is a restoration of those rights. And I suppose that when we're talking about treaty now at the national level, that would be a way and a means by which we could at least get some restoration.
To recover some of it, yes.
Yes, to recover it, because but then people that we've trusted to actually negotiate on our behalf, or that even government has stitched up, is of a concern. Or where we see Aboriginal people that are selected by government, or appointed by government to speak on behalf of Aboriginal people. That's droned out the leadership level with Aboriginal people who Aboriginal people elect.
Yeah.
So it's an attempt to kill off the Aboriginal democratically elected leadership. So therefore we're coming up with almost like a false leadership that in this case did away with our rights.
Well, the ones we must fear and the ones we must discard from any meeting and ban from any meeting that we have are those who talk against our inherent sovereignty.
Yeah, inherent sovereignty.
If you got people saying that sovereignty is too hard, I would tell them to go out the door. Because if you're going to have people do that there, these people are going to sell you out for peanuts. Be very careful of those who do not wish to argue the sovereign point. They are the most dangerous people we have right before us. Yeah, and they are within our own ranks. Now, these people have got a lot to answer for because they're the ones that negotiated our rights away. They're the ones that lost our organisations. They were involved in all of those committees. They were involved in all those organisations. And because they didn't stand up and argue the Aboriginal campaign that we run, that is the one that's live, sovereignty, then they're going to betray us. They're going to give everything away and acquiesce.
Yeah, so it's as you said, betrayal and treachery.
Absolutely.
Perhaps it's the word. So therefore, we've got to make sure that the people that we appoint are the people, or that we elect, are the people that actually get to negotiate on our behalf.
Well, I think every
instead
nation,
of government appointment.
I think each nation needs to make those determinations as to who they have speak for them. I don't think that you can sit in Melbourne and say, I want someone to speak for the Yorta Yorta. You need to go out there on country and let the Yorta Yorta make their choices on country. I think the Mati Mati and other groups of Victoria are here. I don't think that it's permissible to allow any group sitting in a city or in a major industrial township or a provincial town like Ballarat or Bendigo, or whether it be Wagga Wagga in New South Wales. The fact is that those people do not represent those tribes. And the first thing that the government has to do is let the people go back, facilitate a program of being able to pay people to go back to their meetings if the government's serious, and pay for people to go back on country and have their meetings on country and involve the people in the communities who live on country. You can't have a group of people living in Melbourne making decisions for someone who lives at say, what's that place down there, Chuka, or or Robinvale, for example. You can't do that. You've got to go to Robinvale and sit with the people where the bulk of the population are, who still live on country, who still depend on country, who still go out and do things. I think that's absolutely vital that happens. Now, I think whilst I agree with the ambition, whilst I agree with the whole idea of a treaty and negotiating a treaty, but the treaty that we should be negotiating with is with the Commonwealth. That's where we should be aiming our directions at, with the Commonwealth.
So this is the Sovereign Union flag.
That's the Sovereign Union flag. This is the Euahlayi flag.
Yes.
And this here comes from, that one there, here, that's law. That represents the Australian continental law that exists in this country. That's never been taken away. Never. And that continental law belongs to the people according to their law and customs. And that's what Mabo have decided, that we recognise Aboriginal law. Yeah?
Yes.
And Mabo also said Aboriginal law is not a construct of the English law, but it's now recognised by it. Yeah? It means that you are independent and we have law for country. Yeah? And so if you want to talk to me about a treaty, well, then you talk it on my terms, because my law is the law of the land where I come from. And so you map your country, and what law existed at the time before white people, that's the sovereign power that you have. And so then, if you're going to give that away and adopt an artificial one, well, then that's when you need a treaty. But remember that you're giving away your power to govern yourself under your law. This treaty here, in Victoria, if they successfully negotiate it, right, that's only about Victoria and the rights of the Victorian government that you guys down here will negotiate. Yeah. Now, the Commonwealth government can, in their whatever they want to do, can pass a law or just sit there as a bystander and sign off and say, yes, we think this is a wonderful idea and we don't interfere with the right of Victoria to do what they want. However, what it does do, though, is it impacts on the Commonwealth government to be able to do things for Aborigines in Victoria. Because then the Commonwealth will wipe their hands at Victoria and say, you fellas signed a treaty. Yeah. If you want the Commonwealth to be involved, well, then the Commonwealth has to be a part of that treaty, and they will write in what they want in that treaty. But the Victorian government, because they've initiated this action, you will domesticate the treaty, and all those rights that are under international law will disappear from your face, and so you will get a second-rate treaty, which will have no standing to be able to argue at a national or international level. Yeah. The government are out to deceive us and steal this country by stealth.
So even if it's a Commonwealth treaty, it could also extinguish sovereignty at the Commonwealth level?
Well, anything in the Constitution, unless it's particularly written that it doesn't, it will.
Yeah.
So there has to be a clause there stipulating that this treaty or this section of the Australian Constitution does not impede, impact or otherwise take away the continuing sovereignty of the tribes in Australia. If that's not in the Australian Constitution when they insert the Aboriginal recognition, we're just a leaf on a dying tree, and the next big wind is going to blow us away.
Yes, indeed. So we need to really get it right, particularly with treaty at the state level and also to the Commonwealth level. Now what about Aboriginal people treating with each other?
Well, I think that's essential. I think we need to unite ourselves and become unified in terms of yet another common purpose, as we did without anything written when we all fought for land rights. That's so important today, because we need to create, legitimacy, and this legitimate process will be a treaty. Being able to treaty with each other is vital, and of course that's why I introduced that the sovereign union, because the thing is that it's got to be the tribes. Yeah, there's no way in the world the international community is going to recognise 300 different tribes as individual states. But what we can do here with us is by treating with each other. We're not ceding anything to a national body. We're merely saying, well then, we look after our issues here in our own nation, and then you mob up there, you look after the national issues, yeah, and international issues. But you can't do it unless you've been mandated by us. But at the same time, you have to put a person into that position, into a national body. It's your nation that has to put a leader in there who's going to represent you. Quite frankly, if Victoria's going to progress this thing, then it's a telling time, and it's going to be the strength of the people, of the Aboriginal people, and the strength of their leadership to say, hang on a minute, we want to first investigate what are our international legal rights, and what rights do we have as sovereign people. Yeah? So they need to just take that step back and slow down the pace a little bit and give themselves time to look at everything that's there on the table. And see, we argue that with the NAC at the time, we were saying to Malcolm Fraser, and in fact Malcolm Fraser agreed with it, that you don't need to have a constitutional amendment. The existing constitution, section 51, subsection 26, already allows for the government to enter into any legislative, treaty arrangement or other arrangement with Aboriginal people under that section. The power is there, and it's constitutionally based, right? So you have that there. The government can negotiate with us there. Now, and then you take that to section 51, subsection, I think it's 30 or 31, the foreign power, yeah? So we can negotiate our rights with the Commonwealth Government under the foreign power in the Constitution, as well as section 51, subsection 26. So the Australian Government can negotiate a treaty with us under that, yeah, and it becomes constitutionally attached, right? And then you use the foreign power to negotiate all those international laws to be part of our treaty. The Australian government has the power to do that. They don't have to amend the Constitution at all.
Well, there we go. I've seen standout leaders that have led us in the right direction. So I want to thank you very much for your contribution today.
You fans, you love, and you hate me. It's the point, baby.